Hello everyone. Kajay, welcome in to every single person here tonight. 24 hours after London, Michael McQuaid here, Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary, and last but in no means least, Mark Cockerell. Can I, folks, just first of all, gentlemen, can we get a Duval?
Duval! So here in Duval.
Yeah! Mr. Cockerell, Mark, welcome in, my friend.
Michael.
You're here, you've made it. Duval?
Duval? David Duval, who played golf?
Jaguars. Duval.
No. For me, it's about the Dolphins today.
Welcome in, boys. How are we doing? Good?
Very good.
Yeah, feeling good. Great weekend.
We heard Duval enough yesterday, Michael, so don't need to hear it again, mate.
He's a good golfer, isn't he?
He was
back in the day. Won the British Open, I believe, Michael.
Used to be world number one, Brian, actually.
Yeah, we can get into that. I think he won by 7 shots in, what year was it? 2000 and... I remember watching him win after a Dublin Leinster final in Fairview. Another Leinster final, which Dublin won. Wouldn't be hard.
Okay. So we went from Churchill to Dublin in a Leinster final in 24 hours. First off, thanks to everybody that watched the show yesterday from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Also, Richard Graves, CB Schechter, thanks so much for coming on. If you check out our pinned tweet, you have the chance of winning a gaming chair, NFL Game Pass, and something else, which I've literally forgot about, thanks to Trust Gaming. Check out the pinned tweet for more details. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Obviously, the Irish NFL show presented by
A headset,
Trust
Michael.
Gaming. Headset as well. I'll need one after tonight. Sponsored by Trust Gaming and also Matchbook Betting Exchange. Monday Night Football coming up. Lads, welcome in. Obviously, a great day yesterday. Everyone got home safe and sound in one piece anyway. Colin, I'll start with you, man. A memorable fortnight in London town.
Yeah, great couple of weeks, and I think the atmosphere in the stadium, in particular, yesterday, was really good. It kind of became a real American football stadium, particularly in those third and fourth quarters when it tightened up, and both teams obviously with opportunities to win. And we had the live show on Saturday night as well. Great Cork contingent and people from all over the island and our two Scottish friends as well. So yeah, really great fortnight, and this weekend in particular, that live show is a highlight.
Yeah, Brian, great to have Phoebe and Richard on.
Yeah, yesterday morning show was really good. We've had 2 great weekends in terms of shows on the rooftop there at the stage. I mean, everybody who we spoke to over throughout the both weekends were blown away by how impressive the setup was and how we were fortunate enough to get those facilities. It was really good, and the show itself was really good and engaging, and it was great to have guests on both weekends, because let's not forget last weekend we had D. Orlando on from Atlanta, and he was really he was a joy to be with, because he's a very shrewd operator, as we discussed at the weekend. And for the game itself, as a neutral, despite what Mark may have taught yesterday, because Mark kept reminding me that I'm not supposed to be applauding plays in the media box, but look, if you see a good play, you're going to clap it. And but no, as a neutral, to be there at the end, it was, to see how the game finished and the atmosphere, and having been to quite a few games throughout the years as part of this NFL UK games in London, whether it was at Wembley, and having been there a couple of years ago, that was probably the best atmosphere for the game I've experienced over there. And it was a fitting end, whether it was the Dolphins kicking it late or the Jags, it was fitting end to it, which I felt was actually quite a good game.
I completely agree with you, Mark. Obviously, good to have you over as well yesterday, after last week, and just a great weekend.
Yeah, no, it was a great weekend. Great game as well. Like, I mean, you go and make an argument that it was possibly the best game out of 30 we've seen at London. There's been a couple of good games, but this one stood out. I think, as Brian alluded to, it stood out more for the atmosphere and the excitement in the fourth quarter. Like, the place was buzzing. Everyone was on their feet for the last-minute field goal. The Jags getting the stop, and they run down the end zone. And because at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, you're a bit close to the crowd, they were jumping up and high-fiving, fans in the end zone and things like that. And that was a lot more alive. I've just seen Fred's question. Don't know, Fred. Didn't try one, I'm afraid to say, but we'll check it out next time. I mean, look, there are some there were some amazing plays as well. It is really worth calling out for anybody obviously watching it, but watching it live. Trevor Lawrence's throw on the 28-yarder at the end of the first half was a joy to behold. It was absolutely beautiful. How he kicked off with Agnew, 29-yarder at the start of the third quarter, and James Robinson's angry run to set up their second touchdown there was fantastic. And Tua, was great in times. Like the 91-yard drive, the first drive of the game, he was great at times. And there was times he looked like the rookie with happy feet and dangerous things. I mean, in fact, if you had told me that Trevor Lawrence was the sophomore and Tua was the rookie, I would have believed you every day of the week. And that's a bit of a concern. But look, we'll get on to like some of the stuff that the guys came out with the post game, I'm sure. Fair play to the Jags, obviously breaking their duck. And as we called out beforehand, we actually tweeted out, hey, look at the kickers warming up. And hey, practice squad kicker's been elevated for the Jags and promptly puts away a couple of 50-yarders. So, great weekend, great game. And great seller games, which we ended up then catching up on rapidly on Red Zone and on the ways back home at various different times.
Before I make a quick point on Urban Meyer, I know Fred is concerned about our eating habits throughout the weekend. But I was blowing smoke for we were fortunate to be well looked after yesterday in Tottenham because obviously we were in the media area, so we weren't eating any. What did he call it? Cheese sandwiches or anything? Going to put that in Michael? What was the note?
I think it was like a chili hot dog.
Chili hot dog. We were fortunate to have, I think, a nice ham and a bit of mash and a halftime treat as well. So no,
Gammon.
Yeah. What I've learned about going away with Mark Cochran is I'll never go home hungry. Yeah, that's what I certainly learned this weekend.
Did you guys get the train? You got the train, okay? Yeah.
Oh, we did, yeah. Urban Meyer, just a quick one. I don't know if this is a trend in the NFL. I've seen it a lot of times. When a team wins their first game of the year, the coach comes in with the match ball and he declares the match ball to whoever he believes is the man the match or whatever you want to call it. And, it would have went to Trevor Lawrence. But by the time he came in after the press conference, the players had already decided who was getting the match ball and Trevor Lawrence had already been given the ball. And then he was left doing what's come out today as a very cringeworthy speech to the team afterwards, and by all accounts, the coverage is there. Go and look at it. Half the players were sitting there on their phones, not even listening to him. They might have got a win. But all is in rosy just yet.
We've got a few videos to show just from our time yesterday. They took too long to edit, so I'm going to play them, boys. I'm sorry, but we got a few questions, and I have to say before we put them on, I walked down the tunnel. I was like one of the first people in the room after, sort of sprinted down after the field goal, and the atmosphere from the Jags boys was nuts. There was guys literally shouting Duval. So, hopefully by now we all know what that is.
They might have thought you were coming into them, Michael.
I tried. I couldn't get in. But yeah.
It's a Belgian beer as well, Michael, Duval. It's nice up, yeah.
Right. Here is the winning field goal from where we were sitting. I'm sure you boys have seen this, but this is from where we were sitting in case you want to see our reaction yesterday. Very, very brief.
Here we go. It's the gift.
I'd kick Brian enough.
Michael, you are. Yeah, was your finger stuck on the button there?
It was a wee bit. Now look, if it helps, I'm gonna make an idiot out of myself now because I asked Urban Meyer a question, and God help him, the man genuinely had no idea who I was or what I was saying. Coach, you've enjoyed some fantastic crowds in college football. What were the fans like in the UK and Europe and Tottenham Hotspur today?
I'm sorry.
How did you enjoy the fans today?
Fans?
Yeah, the atmosphere.
Yeah, they were couldn't exactly understand who they're cheering for at times. I saw all the, like I see here, all the different uniforms. But this is I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. This is and thank you to the people, the fans, the setting, and our hosts at the Grove.
I'm never going to forget that again in my life. That was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. And
Yeah, I think he's thinking the same thing as well now.
No,
Yeah, he doesn't
sorry?
have anything else to be embarrassed about, Brian. Yeah.
yeah, I'd say that's the least of it. What people mightn't realize, just what he referred to. You see him point in the video. There was a guy in a Nick Bosa jersey and one of the Bucks, I think, in front of us. So that's what he was referring to, was the fact that
Yes,
even in the press room, there were people in all of the jerseys. We saw all 32 jerseys, and from every era, every vintage on show yesterday.
Colin, that would have been a
Mark.
good moment. Sorry, Mike, that would have been a good moment for you, Colin, to stand up and say, "Sure, what are you talking about?"
Colin gets his question in for Big Trevor in 2 seconds. Mark Cockerell getting the big question in for Tua after the game yesterday, man. I felt like a proud father watching this earlier on.
First, it's your first game in London. Obviously, the end result isn't what you would have desired, but now you're at the end of it. Any thoughts on the experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really nice place. We stayed on a golf course, and I mean,
It's okay.
the golf course is pretty big. There's really not much water and trees, so you can slice it or hook it, and it'll pretty much be on the fairway. So it's from my take on it.
I'm not
Getting the
joking.
big answers, Mark.
Sorry, Mike. When I was recording that, I was saying to myself, "What is this man talking about?" Just watched the game, and he's, played really well in the fourth quarter. Went missing for 2 quarters. Came back with a 91-yard drive, and then he started talking to Mark Cockerell about golf courses. Oh, God.
I must admit, like, straight after that, I was reflecting on the same point. It's like, how will Dolphins fans react to Tua kind of talking about, I had a great time in London. I played a bit of golf and I didn't, get off the fairway. I didn't go wrong on the fairway because it was so generous. And then I thought, if they are, and I have seen a couple of Dolphins comment sites, because obviously they watch all of the post-game presses and they've picked up on that a little bit. And I was like, it's a bit unfair. The guy's there just trying to give a bit of personality and a bit of an answer to, I mean, let's face it, it's a bit of a softball question that I was asking about, how'd you find London? And we give out about these athletes when they don't show any personality, but if they do show a bit of a viewpoint and an approach, then we can't give him crap that way either. So, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. He was actually, I mean, all the other answers, I mean, as you can imagine, he was pretty downcast and pretty depressed about the whole thing. And did talk quite eloquently about, didn't want to dwell on the positives, didn't want to dwell on the good plays he'd made, because ultimately they didn't win. And Jalen Waddle, who brought in a brace of touchdowns for Brian, was similarly of that mindset.
Yeah, I was going to go up to him and show me a receipt. I don't think he would have cared. What about Derek Duval? Only feels on horses, Mark.
The funniest thing from that whole Duval thing is yesterday, if you actually zoom in on the video, Mark's going Duval, and in the background, all there is Duval. That's the funniest thing in all of it. Right. Cast your mind back to April when we done this like sort of half-edited show. Trevor Lawrence goes first. Suddenly it's October. The majestic hairman is there, and Colin Cronin manages to get a question from the #1 draft pick.
The experience here in the Spurs Stadium.
Oh, it was unbelievable. All the fans, I mean, it was packed. I haven't seen a stadium that packed since before COVID, so it was really cool. The fans were super engaged. It was a really cool experience, something I've never been a part of. So, I'm excited. I love that we, the Jags play this game at least one every year. So I'm excited to come back, and the fans were awesome. So thank you guys, all the Jags fans, all the American football fans in London. Appreciate y'all.
That was in Sky Sports this morning. So well done.
Well done,
bravo.
Well done to Trevor Lawrence, who, look, unsurprisingly, the #1 overall pick, looks the real deal. He looks like a really serious QB. If they give him a tight end next year, he'll be utterly fantastic. By week 17 of this year, he's going to look amazing. But I think for fans over here, the interesting thing is hearing him say he's excited about coming back every year. I think that's a pretty good sign for us that he'll be on this side of the Atlantic, because he's undoubtedly going to be vying with Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes over the next decade or so.
Mark, I know you have a point to make. I just want to make a quick one. Do you know when we were divvying up the teams yesterday in terms of who's going to what press conference afterwards? To be honest, the only reason I was happy to go to the Dolphins was it was literally only a minute walk from the where we were sitting. So I didn't. When you were saying, "I will go over to the Jags," it's over to the other side of the stage. I went, "Yeah, off you go." And in fact, if I had been doing the Jags, I actually brought me notes from when we did the live show of the draft. I was going to put them up for Trevor and say, "I knew back then you were going to be the number one pick." So look at the scouting report I had for you.
Brian, we're never going to be allowed to talk to the Jags because Michael wouldn't let me go near Urban Meyer for fear of what might But in all seriousness, actually, two very quick things. Number one, Trevor Lawrence, again, pre-game, he did his warm-ups, and as he's going back into the tunnel, he stood for a good 5-8 minutes signing anything and everything the fans were hanging over the radar, the railings for him to sign. I mean, that is the franchise quarterback. That is the face of the franchise. Doing the bit, small as it is, effectively to connect with the fans. And he was doing that all week long. He also, as he alluded to, had the Tennessee cool, the laid-back attitude in the pocket. Nothing really seemed to faze him too much, and obviously a couple of nice escapes. But on a serious note, Michael, because I know people are raising this point a little bit now. Urban Meyer was 0-5 going into the game. We were talking about his, tenure effectively. The Dolphins beat reporters and the approach they were taking to Brian Flores, who of course now is presiding over the 1-5 Miami Dolphins, was pretty, I don't want to say vicious, but strong, shall we say. And Flores manned up and was like, hey, this is on me. I've got to coach the team better. I've got to do better. But his position may be regarded as more tenuous at this moment in time in the season.
He walked past us in the airport last night. He looked a very lost soul.
Imagine you're hours from, like, thousands of miles from home. You're in Stansted Airport. You look to your left, and Brian O'Leary and Mark Cocker are going, "How are you getting on there, Brian? You all right?"
Well, the only person who looked more harassed than Brian Flores was Dan Marino, in fairness. Yeah. So that was the only.
Was he there last night? Yeah.
Yeah, he was there going through the airport last night, and he didn't want to look or talk to anybody.
Kept the head down. So avoid any contact whatsoever. He had no interest in speaking to or getting any photographs from anybody. He was down the ramp as quick as you could get them.
It's the only international flight from Stansted. There are no international flights from Stansted, so the Dolphins are special. Before we move on, we're going to look at just the rest of the games from yesterday, or as much as we can in the next 40 minutes. Mark, can we get a Duval before we move on?
No, Michael.
Okay,
no.
Right. Okay. Well, Mark will want to give us a Duval in 2 seconds because the Dallas Cowboys beat the New England Patriots 35-29 last night. Colin, mate, a fantastic result for the Cowboys. Cowboys move 5-1. And we spoke to Richard Greaves yesterday. They're looking good.
Yeah, we've said it before, good teams find a way to win, and that's what the Cowboys had to do. I think what that game helps to highlight is the way in which the game is constantly evolving. Dak put up the most yards against a Bill Belichick defense that has ever happened. But that's just an example that the rules, favor the offense, and you have to have a QB who can do it all now. It's as simple as that. And in fairness, Belichick came up with some great plans. I've seen him talk a little bit earlier on today about why they moved away from certain things. They ran out of certain plays to run. But I think what also stood out was I thought Mac Jones responded really well. I think he's faced a lot of criticism, but throwing that pick, being able to shake it off straight away. And I saw Dak Prescott talk about that immediately afterwards. Like, you got to have the ability to overcome throwing a pick six like that and moving straight on. Like it didn't happen, just go out and do it again. So, positive signs for the Patriots. They're still growing and with that rookie QB. But look, we've said it, the Cowboys, they're a serious contender. And Diggs continues to get picks.
And there's two points I want to make. One is where I felt it was a turning point in the game. The Patriots scored a touchdown and we're going 21-7 up, and it was called back on a hold. And we've seen time and time in the NFL, the next play tends to be a disastrous play. And what happens, strip sack, Cowboys recover, and the game, to a certain extent, changes there. If that goes in 21-7, who knows? But if you just see time and time again, they go with an aggressive play on the one thereafter. They should have maybe went a little bit conservative there, gone for the run, settle things down. But unfortunately, it wasn't the big. And myself and Mark were watching this game, traveling back last night, and it was evident that the Cowboys were on the field for 40 minutes of the game. Sorry, the Patriots defense was on the field for 40 minutes of the game. So when it went to overtime or towards the back end of the game, there was like 4 lead changes or something like that in the fourth quarter. And there was a 3rd and 24 when the Patriots were leading it towards the end, and they gave up 23 yards, and I think they got it on the yard, or they got enough in terms to go for that field goal. And going into overtime, I just felt, having been on the field for so much of the game, it was inevitable if the Cowboys got the ball that the Patriots defense was gassed. And then I just want to make a point to Dan Quinn, because we've been critical of him after his time in Atlanta. From reading Cowboy stuff, because I've gone and done it for my sins, what they're saying is he's not coming in. He seems to have changed the model in which he works off from a defensive scheme. He worked on the Pete Carroll scheme, which is, this is the scheme, players need to fit into it. What it seems to have done now is he's revolved, and he's actually gone, I'm going to fit a scheme around the players that I've got on this defense. Randy Gregory is having a great season, who has had for a long time had troubles with the NFL. He struggled. He seems to be come back re-energized, and obviously we talked about Diggs, so I won't talk about him again, because I keep making fool of myself every time I make a point about him, because he keeps going and doing things that annoy me every week. So, but look, it was a great win for the Cowboys, because I felt it was one for the Patriots. I think the Patriots had it there, and it just didn't work out, and similar enough to the Bucs game in a way. The Patriots are 2-4, and they could easily be 4-2.
I thought Brian was about to say Diggs got burnt for 75 yards on the next play.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, they're blaming the safety that came across on that play, would you believe?
Well, it was the corner, let him go. Anyway, the point for me was, and Brian's right, we were on the plane, and I'm looking in the second quarter and seeing how long the sustained the Cowboys' drives were. I was saying, our defense is going to be mess in the fourth quarter. They cannot maintain it. And let's be fair, Brian's right to call out the hold, the call back the touchdown that would have been for Jacoby Myers. But in very many ways, the Cowboys let the Patriots hang around in that game. They had an interception in the end zone. They had a fumble which went into the end zone that the Patriots recovered. I mean, there's 2 surefire point situations that came off. Dak had no problem continuing to move the ball, whether it was 3rd and 14 and then going for it, 3rd and 11, 1st and 20 with holding penalties. The Pats just couldn't get off the field. And yes, watching it, there was a beautiful moment where I thought, this is going to be like the Ravens game last year. Everyone's written off the Patriots, and the big game, they're going to put it through, and it's going to be fantastic and glorious. And hang on a second, if we go to 3-3, is there still a chance in the division? And can the Titans beat the Bills? You know, I was basically doing what Brian O'Leary does with the Giants every season. But ultimately, they were found wanting. The Cowboys were deserved winners. But the momentum and the excitement of Mac Jones bouncing back and throwing that touchdown, obviously, Gillette was rocking. Great to see, and hopefully can only build for the future.
Thanks to Ron for your very fine comment on Twitter. Ron, thank you very much for watching and interacting with the show. We're going to look at the Ravens very quickly. 34-6 winners against the Chargers. I didn't see that coming, lads. Call them a day to forget for the Chargers.
Yeah, nothing seemed to work for them in any way, shape, or form. They may as well have not got off the plane. It just a bad day for Brandon Staley. He hasn't had many of them thus far. Justin Herbert hasn't had many of them either. But it was all about the Ravens yesterday. Lamar Jackson now takes over from Dan Marino with the most wins by QB before their 25th birthday. And for the Ravens, a beat-up Ravens team, they've now beaten the Chiefs and the Chargers. So they look. What can you say? Harbaugh is doing a fantastic job, and at week 6, at this point, you would say that the front runners for MVP are Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. A few others there. Tom Brady will be there or thereabouts. But it's the fact that I suppose Murray and Jackson can do it all. The Ravens have just been really, really impressive to come back like they did against the Colts, and then to put that sort of beat down. I mean, I thought it would be one of the games of the day yesterday. No, it was all over very early. Kudos to the Ravens.
It was all over very early because Martindale, the defensive coordinator, put a great scheme together, and Herbert didn't really have a day. And in fact, Herbert, he was like 22 for 33 with 1 touchdown, and that's average for a quarterback. But the way he's been playing so far this season, and our run game, which was quite explosive over the past few weeks, for Eckler never got going. In fact, Herbert was the highest rusher for 12 yards on 2 runs throughout the game. So it just shows how much they shut them down. 3 rushing touchdowns from the Ravens. I mean, right now, you could argue that they could be the best team in the AFC. I know they're beating what most people, maybe yourselves, felt were the best team yesterday in the Chargers, but they were so dominant. It was just, it's a big win for them.
I mean, look, we've praised the Chargers and we've called out some great wins and great performances they've done. This was like the Chargers of old, complete duck egg, goose egg, whatever you want to say. They did not show up. Brian's right to give credit to the Ravens for the defensive scheme and performance. Their secondary, for me, was still a question. I mean, of course, with the injuries they've suffered, that's to be expected somewhat. But they showed up. They really established themselves. And, again, that could be important for seeding later in the season again, of course.
And Mike Williams, who, like we discussed on the show yesterday, has come out. I suppose he's the number one. Before yesterday's game, he was the number 1 wide receiver in the league. And it's all about Keenan Allen. But yesterday, he was shut down for 2 for 27, and one of them was a 26-yarder. So he actually only got 1 yard thereafter. Like, they shut him down, they shut Keenan Allen down, and just nothing went right for the Chargers. But look, the Chargers will be fine. They'll rebound off this.
I think they'll rebound as well. I was completely wrong. I thought that it would be a shootout, or I thought the Chargers would win. I got into my hotel and seen the score and was like, oh my God, like completely the opposite of what was going to happen. Goose egg, Mark? I'm not sure. I haven't.
Goose egg is another terminology for 0. I shouldn't have said duck egg. Goose egg would have been more appropriate. They did get 6 points, but it might as well have been compared to how their offense has normally performed.
As opposed to your Scotch egg.
Shout out to Munsey watching the show. Shout out to Irish Titans, who hopefully none of us are going to let down later on in the show when we make our picks ahead of Monday Night Football. We'll do that in a wee while. One thing that I got wrong yesterday, I said the Packers might go like -14. They didn't. 24-14 winners. But the biggest storyline of that game, Colin, seems to be Aaron Rodgers taunting the crowd and finding a way now to not get a penalty or not get a flag. And genius from a man that continually just finds ways to really bang on social media.
Well, yeah, look, Michael, he is. I mean, the guy is a superstar, and the Packers, he had, look, the way this summer played out, didn't look good for anybody. But the reality is, and we talked about in the live show, other QBs have so much input into the decisions, and Aaron Rodgers, I think, just got fed up with, I suppose, Brady getting that year 1, and hearing about others. The IOU stuff has already led to various memes on Wikipedia and whatnot. But Aaron Rodgers is 6-0 against rookie QBs in the NFC North. He loves playing at Soldier Field. Is that 10 of the last 11 he's won there now? I imagine he wishes he could probably play NFC North opponents almost every week. But the Packers are going to the playoffs. How deep they can go will be interesting. But they've got a 2-headed monster at running back, not quite in the Cleveland level or the Cowboys level. But they have weapons to come at you. Kind of secondary, obviously, a concern. The other thing about this, definitely need to keep the Free the Chicago One campaign going, because Allen Robinson just and look, that's rookie QBs, but like at times yesterday, just running down the field, waving, almost doing jumping jacks. He was so open, but Fields just not able to find him.
See, the talk today is all about Rogers' outspoken comments after he runs in the touchdown. I think a part of that was he was slightly frustrated with how his game went yesterday because he only threw for 159 yards. But for me, the key part of the game was the Bears seemed to do reasonably well on defense in terms of holding them up. But in the end, they gave up three. They were in the red zone 4 times and they gave up 3 touchdowns. And yeah, you're right, he does own them to a certain extent. 10 of the last 11. Whether you should have said it or not, look, you're in the middle of a game and you just scored a touchdown. Emotions are running high.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, the Bears fans are making a real big deal of it today. I mean, we've seen a few comments from Bears fans in the States and in Ireland, and they're not too best pleased with what happened. But it is what it is. We've seen it before.
It's a bit of crack. It's a bit of crack at the end of the day, boys.
Well, I mean,
Sure, Justin Fields is class.
I was going to say, if the Bears fans want to make a big deal about it, just win the game. Beat Aaron Rodgers. It's that simple, guys, in many regards. It's a bit of much ado about nothing. I mean, he said in the press conference, I looked up, saw some woman giving me the double bird, and just stuff came out of my mouth. I don't even know what I said. I mean, he's in a hostile environment. I've criticized Aaron Rodgers for some of his activity. I'm definitely not going to go Skip Bayless because Skip's giving out about him being a diva today and things like this. No. I mean, he deserves the entitlement to express his opinion in relation to it, and he's not wrong. This is the point. Funny enough, Colin, though, one thing you said about the two-headed running monster. I mean, the Browns don't have that anymore, and I know we'll get onto them, but Kareem Hunt going down is a massive injury there. Already with Nick Chubb obviously out of the game this week. So, every week in the NFL shifts the dynamic ever so slightly in, various mysterious ways. The Bears had their shot to get level with the Packers. They didn't really do enough. Their defense did. Their offense certainly didn't yet again. So Packers deservedly go on. They'll be up there in terms of seeding. They'll be looking over the shoulder. And who's to think? Remember week 1. Is it an overreaction about that Saints performance, which was pathetic? We went, yeah, it probably is. They're going to be fine. Sure enough, 5 wins later, they're, back into normal operating procedure.
So Mark's been a little bit more user friendly towards Rodgers tonight because we'll let you lads in on a little secret. Me and Mark had a bit of a dabble on a couple of handicaps on the way home, and the Packers was the last one we were waiting on at -6. So obviously, when they're only winning by a couple of points, there's a bit of effing and blinding going on. So when he ran that touchdown in, Mark had a big smile on his face.
Just on the shutting people up, and if the Bears are really upset about it, do what the Packers did. 2003, Matt Castle, we want the ball because we're going to score. The Packers shut him up and shut the Seahawks up. That's how you go about it.
And they've got 10 more weeks to do that. They can go 10-0 and win the division.
The Bears go to the Bucs on Sunday.
Well, no. To be fair, now if they're fired up after that, they can go and beat Tom Brady when they've got a decent defense in Justin Fields.
They beat him last year, so who knows?
Yeah, you never know. You can retweet the episode tonight for a chance. I did not realize that you can see my head in that there, by the way, lads. You can retweet for a chance to win a gaming chair, NFL Game Pass, and gaming headset from gamerstore.ie and Trust Gaming. That closes on October the 30th. We're going to look ahead now to, or look back on the Cardinals beating the Browns 37-14. For me, boys, obviously the Cardinals going 6-0. But seeing what I seen before I fell asleep, and then obviously watching the highlights this morning, that defense is class. Baker Mayfield could only really do so much, and Colin, a lot of Browns fans disappointed after last night. I think they really thought they had a chance coming back into it a little bit, but then Arizona pull away, and they just look really good.
Yeah, I mean the Browns had a lot of injuries, but the Cards obviously with Vance Joseph as your head coach, with Murray without his play caller, without his starting center, they still were great. I thought JJ Watt had a fantastic game, and his comments afterwards were quite telling as well. No excuses. It doesn't matter who's out. You just go and win. The Cards have started 6-0, which apparently is first time for them since '74. There have been 40 teams that have started 6-0 since 1990, and 38 of them have gone on to get to the playoffs. usually average finish at 13-3. I thought we were going to do live commentary there of Mark eating his pizza.
It's been a long 24 hours.
But for the Browns, short week now. Obviously, huge number of injuries. JOK is going to IR potentially. Hunt probably going to IR. The only good news for them is they're going to be playing Vic Fangio's Denver Broncos on Thursday.
Hunt's gone for 3 weeks. They've got a quarterback that has a dislocated shoulder, but is going to play through it. When that contract comes up, it's on the way. This Browns thing is going to end in a disaster because Mayfield is just not the answer. I'm sure the Browns fans are going to shoot me down now tonight.
Oh, come on. Wise up. Are you serious?
Are you serious? You said you watched it. Or you watched the highlights. I don't know what highlights you're watching.
But like every dog can have his day. Like woof, go Brownies, etc. But
I know. In fairness, Richard Graves, he called out. It was more the play calling. Bayfield for me is they're going to end up in the Goff situation. You're going to pay him the money. 2 or 3 years time, they're going to be on. What do we pay that man for? If you went back to the draft, would you say he's the number 1 pick in the draft right now, ahead of Lamar Jackson, ahead of who else went in that draft? Go on, call them out.
Lamar Jackson. Look, I'm not going to start calling names. I think his ceiling's class, his potential is unreal. If it was me, I'd pick.
It must be the ceiling in the bedroom that you're talking about.
Would you take him? I'd take him in Denver. I think he'd walk into New York as well. I'd love Baker Mayfield in my team. I think his potential is unreal, boys. And he's got 10, 12 years left in this league. He'll get a big contract. The Browns will go close, if not win it over.
He will consume so much of the cap. The Browns won't be able to do anything in 3 or 4 years' time.
They're like Mahomes.
Look at the players. How did the Chiefs do it every year? They still pay him. You're questioning Mahomes now, are you?
I'm not questioning that. I'm just talking like it's the same financial situation.
But the Chiefs have found ways to reconstruct contracts. I'm just saying.
And
anyway,
I think probably it's a situation where there are questions. The Browns obviously wanted to hang on to see. The fact that they didn't do the contract in the way that the Bills looked to pony up immediately, I think, to me, tells me their concerns. But I think given the history of the Browns, they probably will. I don't think he'll end up in the Goff situation because we'll probably get to the Lions and Goff he's an albatross around the team's neck. I don't think Baker is that, but I definitely have if you look around the AFC and you look around what players and what teams are going to have to do over the next decade, right? In order to make the playoffs and make their way through the AFC Championship. It would be a concern, definitely, for the Browns that he's not at the same level as a Mahomes, a Herbert, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen.
But guys, this isn't about the Browns. I mean, Mayfield was drafted ahead of Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen, who are the other QBs drafted in the top 10 in 2018. I think they made the right decision in that regard. Just let's be fair. And we're talking about an albatross around the neck, and the Eagles aren't doing very well. But one set of birdies that are doing very well, of course, is the Arizona Cardinals, and they deserve much more of the focus than the Browns. If you're a Browns fan, the Hail Mary at the end of the first half is the only highlight, really, from that entire game. Other than that, it's about a more conjoined defensive effort from the Cardinals than we'd seen in some recent weeks, and Kyler Murray doing Kyler Murray things. 4 touchdowns. He's still, for me, I know you mentioned Lamar, Colin, but I've got Kyler way out in front still in terms of the MVP race.
He only ran for we're so used to seeing him running for 40, 50 yards, and he only ran for 6 yards yesterday because they didn't need to make him run, and obviously he had a shoulder injury, so they're playing conservative.
So I mean, he did more than enough, and I'll tell you who also did more than enough. Wasn't it when we had Aqib Talib? I was trying to remember this. Didn't he say that his biggest receiver, and we asked him about the one he hated going against, and he called out DeAndre Hopkins, wasn't it? Because he said DeAndre Hopkins had it all. He had the speed, he had the agility, he had the downfield threat, he was a big guy. He basically had all the skill set. If you ever wanted a depiction of all the skill set in one play, look at what he did on 3rd down for his touchdown yesterday. A thing of beauty.
It was Megatron, I think, but
it was Calvin Johnson.
I would agree with you that Hopkins is something else. And there was if people haven't seen the clip, There was a phenomenal kind of camera shot of him yesterday, and he jukes two guys and makes them miss. He's a unbelievable player.
I'm kind of getting away from this game, but yesterday when we were discussing potential new head coaches for the Broncos in the future, and you were saying potential.
Come on. What's going on? AOB. Let's not talk about the
No,
Broncos.
because it relates to this game. You're talking about potentially like an up and coming coordinator that potentially could move into a head coaching position or back into a head coaching position. Well, Vance Joseph took the game yesterday as the head coach,
Right? That's him off.
He could be in the mix for the Broncos again.
Do you want to stay on the show, Brian?
Do you want to stay on the show? Could be an opening in New York as well.
Oh, we'll come to that because I tell you, the judgment is changing for the judge, man.
No, you can't.
Oh, the Knights are out today.
We're talking about games being over early and the Ravens Chargers being a game. That Giants Rams game. I mean, again, I was on the train with Brian Leary looking at some of this on Game Pass.
Yeah.
It wasn't pretty. It wasn't.
Can we talk about something else very quickly
Go
first?
Go on, sorry.
Guys, we didn't jinx them. I'm delighted for them. It's been a long weekend. Seriously. Bengals win 34-11. Right, 34-11 Bengals. Big shout out to Tippity Tip. And also the Bengals UK lads had a massive meetup in London last night. They had a good game column to watch. Have we anything to say about the Bengals? Obviously playing the Lions, but a good win for them.
Yeah, great win. You beat the Lions by 23. You go to 4-2. The fact that those losses have been on field goals, the fact that Joe Burrow's on pace for an almost 40 touchdown season, the fact that Jamar Chase looks fantastic, and that your big free agency acquisition Hendrickson is going and getting you sacks. I mean, they were so good yesterday that Dan Campbell threw one of his own players under the bus. That's how dominant the Bengals were. It's good to see. I suppose right now there are three teams tied behind the Jets. The Jets aren't going to the playoffs. There are three teams tied behind them for the longest route. The Broncos, who are not going to the playoffs, the Cards, who are going to the playoffs, and the Bengals are in with a real opportunity. Interested to see what they do over the course of the rest of the season.
Broncos are free.
I'm back in with the Bengals fans. They're in their good books because I apologise yesterday morning for slating them over the Chase pick in the draft, and I called out on Saturday night at the show that Zach Taylor's the coach of the year. So I saw that result coming yesterday because the Lions would have had a few unfortunate defeats, but I thought it'd be a comfortable day for Burrow. Someone else didn't. And
you might be at the doghouse, Brian. I think I'm definitely in the doghouse or the cat house with the Bengals fans. The reality is, and I'll call it, I mean, the Bengals are 4-2. They're performing fantastically. Yesterday, I had picked the Lions to win the game. Sometimes it's not about you. Like, I mean, we've all been in that situation where we say, hey, it's not me, it's you. Or it's not you, it's me. Sometimes it's better to say the first way around. But for me, I wasn't picking the Lions based on the Bengals necessarily. I was picking the Lions based on it was a home game. They're staring down the barrel of a long list of tight defeats. They were playing tough. Their coach doesn't want to go in 16 like he did as a player, and just having a feeling that this was going to be the moment because this is the NFL, guys, and it is any given Sunday. Of course, logic dictated the Bengals should and would win. They have by far the superior quarterback. Joe Burrow continues. Week 1, he was looking a bit jumpy, but obviously he settled down and he continues to show the talent that he displayed in his rookie season, in his recovery back from his knee injury, which is great to see. I'm going to give up talking about the Sewell Chase decision because, frankly, it's done. And even now, if Joe Burrow was to be injured because his offensive line didn't protect him, I'm hardly going to turn around and say, well, I told you so. You should have picked a tackle to protect them. It's a bit pointless. We'll just admire Jamar Chase for who he is. Bengals fans, I'm sorry for picking against you. I should never doubt you. I should never have made such a stupid mistake. However, it's not like I picked the Texans to win or something dumb like that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pretend my Wi-Fi wasn't working, but it didn't work. Okay. Yeah, the Texans didn't win, and I was showing up for a complete idiot yesterday. Really bad.
I wouldn't go that far.
Really
though,
bad.
Mike.
No, it was bad. No, it was bad. But remember, we're going to be talking about the Giants next, and I've been
Yeah.
editing videos for the last 3 minutes, so God knows what I'm going to put on. So
Slice and
let's
dice
get through
as
this
quick as you
very
can.
quickly. Slicing and dicing, as they say.
The Colts, look, the Colts, I said on the show yesterday that the Colts lost a terrible game last Monday night, but it was their best performance of the season. And they put a beat down on the Texans yesterday. And look, they're going into San Francisco this weekend, and now it looks like Jimmy G is going to be back, and Colin will be delighted with that. But it makes that game, in my opinion, all more difficult for them. But they do have a stretch of games that could potentially put them back in a wildcard race. And like the Colts are still a good team, just been very unfortunate and giving up that lead last Monday against, albeit a good Ravens side. It was good to see them reacting the way, because they could have went out yesterday and won by a touchdown or a field goal against a poor Texans team, but they didn't. They went out and proved that they're by far a much better team, a team that should be challenging at least for a wild card.
Yeah,
Yes.
and their kind of I suppose improvement has also coincided with using Jonathan Taylor. Who'd have thunk that might have worked? Averaged over 10 yards a carry yesterday. Phenomenal. Makes life so much easier for Carson Wentz. Look, Frank Reich, we know, is a very, very good head coach. Brian said on the show yesterday they could make a playoff push. It is going to be fascinating to see how they do over kind of the next 5 games. Obviously, with that Wentz decision to be made. So that's one to keep an eye on as we move towards kind of week 10 and 11.
Any
Yeah,
other
I'm just going to
comments?
say
Not you?
preach, Colin, preach. Jonathan Taylor, 14 carries, 145 yards with 2 TDs. I mean, as he's just said, over 10 yards a carry. Shock. What an amazing way to call a game and win a game. Colts won it, walking away, well deserved. Keep plowing on. Maybe you still got a chance in that division, because the Titans aren't blowing people away just yet.
AOB. Let's start with the Giants. Last night, I found a video, which I'm amazed nobody sent me during the week, of Joe Judge, who said that Daniel Jones wasn't Are you seeing this, Brian? Wasn't practicing.
Yeah, it was all a nonsense.
Ah,
I know you're
come
going to say
on,
he
come
didn't.
Right now, he can just observe. He's in meetings, he can participate in meetings, he can be out at practice, watch, stay behind, things of that nature. That's all he can do.
He's got his pads.
Hey, Joe.
Was that a setup? Was that a setup? Am I crazy?
I don't know whether it's a setup. Most people think it was a setup. He was always going to play. He'd already passed 3 to 5 protocols at that stage. So the next one wasn't for him to be on the field the following day. He was on the field that day.
There's a comment in, Brian, from Fred Flunk. Brian, how long do you give the Giants coach?
Well, it's a fair question. I think it's a fair question today, because up to now, I know we got one beat down last year against the 49ers, but I made the point in the show yesterday morning, and I've been making it for quite a while, that he's been keeping the Giants very competitive in a lot of games. But yesterday's game was a bit demoralising, and more so. Look, we're playing against a team that potentially could go to Super Bowl, so you never thought you're genuinely going to win the game. It was more so to see the lack of effort from a lot of players in the second half, and he has called that out to a large part today in his day after press conference. It's going to be addressed, but the reality is, when you see things like that happening so early in the season, it's clear then the coaches and getting through to the players. And these players aren't players like young rookies who are naive. These players are, been in the league a while. So when they start to eat pizzas instead of working on the game plan, look,
boys, you have a drink on it. I haven't eaten. I'm starving. You saw yesterday.
I'm just trying to stay awake, man. I'm joking.
I look at Mark. When Mark eats, I get hungry. That's the way this weekend played out. But look, the point being, it concerns me. I know we're playing against a really good side, but when you see players giving up on plays and making a lack of effort, that's troubling for any coach, because I feel he deserves better, because I think he is a good coach, and long term I still think he's the right man for the job. But when things like that happen, and this game, you don't be around for long, unfortunately, when you end up with records of only 3 or 4 wins in 2 years, and on a team.
So Michael, just don't want to throw it out there. I apologise, anybody watching. I have to eat. I'm absolutely starving. The recovery from London is what I'm blaming it all on. But I'm going to throw it out with you boys, and to anybody who wants to add their comments on social. Who's the next coach to get fired?
This season, you think there's someone will go during
This season, I
mid-season?
mean, John Gruden would have been the first name we would have picked a couple of weeks ago. Let's be fair. But who's next?
Joe Judge. For me.
It never happen. The Mars wouldn't do that. That's not the way to do business.
No, okay.
That's
I'm going to say Brian Flores.
Flores could well be. I mean, the thing about the situation with the Dolphins is that they are a Damian Harris fumble away from being 0-6, and that's something to consider there. I'm getting confused with almost getting confused with my Patriots names tonight, because I called Matt Hasselbeck Matt Castle earlier, but no, it was Damian Harris with the fumble. It potentially. The thing about it though, Mark, is it so rarely makes a difference in the NFL to change a coach, other than if you want to make a point that results are not acceptable and you're looking to set the culture from the ownership perspective. But changing a coach mid-season, because I was looking at it earlier, unsurprisingly, it just doesn't do a whole lot for you. There are very, very few coaches who've come in and had a better record after mid-season replacement, or who've even hung around to be anything other than an interim placeholder.
Okay.
Are we going to talk about the interim? Are we going to talk about the interim head coach that had a win yesterday, or are we leaving that one aside?
I was actually going to say just an executive decision, because I can hit the button and take people off the show. Can we talk about that on Thursday? Because I'd like us to have sponsors tomorrow morning. Is that all right?
I think Michael might swear a few times if we bring up that particular game.
Fantastic performance from the Raiders yesterday. Interim coach getting the win. They've clearly regrouped. Fair play to them. They've done very well. They genuinely have.
Max Crosby had 14 pressures himself. Yeah. The Broncos had 12. Look, I'm beyond the point of even being angry, because it's no surprise. Like, this has been Vic Fangio. The first thing Vic Fangio did when he walked into Denver was criticize Von Miller, and that he could do more. That was like Mick McCarthy criticizing Dennis Irwin. How did both of those tenures end? Remind me. So kudos to the Raiders, the Broncos. It's like Groundhog Day. Once again, I'll make the point. Only the Jets have been worse offensively since 2017.
Mark, can I just quickly say, Mark, very quickly on this, just such a waste of talent. The talent was wasted from the second that the snap was done in September 2016 against the Panthers on the kickoff of the season, when they had Trevor Siemian starting. It's been a waste of talent. Every asset depreciates, and the window is long gone, and it's a sad state of affairs, because with a good quarterback, this team could have challenged for a couple more years, and it's sad to see. It's not surprising, and of course, a great game on Thursday night. But you know what, Brian has given me hope about Baker Mayfield. So who knows?
It's kind of sorry. I do agree with you. I picked the Broncos yesterday, and I picked them last week, because I feel they are a good team, but unfortunately, the quarterback situation is not right. And now I don't know if there's any truth in it, because you don't know better than me, but. And we're going to see it across the league now. The trade deadline's coming up on November 2nd, I believe, and Von Miller's name is already starting to crop up on a number of reports today.
It's been happening for the last 2 years. Like the last 2 years, there's been talk of guys going. It's like, oh no, we'll not do that there. And you're talking about people getting fired. They'll not fire Vic Fangio. The Broncos won't do that there. So
yeah, well, that's because they're a similar type of.
Alexander Johnson's out for the season as well. So
yeah, but Michael, on the firing, the reason I also bring up Flores' name is Stephen Ross. And I like Brian Flores. I think he's a great coach, actually. I mean, did great things in the Patriots, and I think he deserves to be a head coach in this league, to be very frank. But Stephen Ross is not exactly known for his patience and his calm and sensitive understanding of the ways of things. In contrast, in the Denver situation, Vic Fangio doesn't really have a proper ownership group still enabled, so it's less easy to take decisions against him in that regard. Anyway, I know we're doing a bit of AOB, so just to cover off other games a little bit, the Chiefs-Washington game deserves acknowledgement, if only for the fact it was the biggest Jekyll and Hyde performance I think I've seen all season. First half, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs didn't know what had hit them. The worst interception possibly I've ever seen in my life, let alone in the NFL season this far. And in the second half, it was like, okay, now we got to get serious. 21-zip, and blew the Washington football team out of the water in the end. That team still isn't right. They've got a lot of flaws and a lot of problems. Patrick Mahomes already thrown for 8 interceptions, which is more than in his last 2 seasons, and we're only through 6 games. But they've so much talent. A little bit like the Denver situation you're saying about the talent around them, that it just still feels like they'll get right. And let's face it, they are still only 1 game out of the division lead as well, having equaled off at 3-3 with the Chargers loss.
I would say, obviously, the Chiefs have got a lot more talent than that. Like, the Broncos had a lot of talent. They had a lot more. They had very good talent. They have great talent, or good talent, and now they're sort of, it's over. But I think the Chiefs are laughing. That's one team done already.
The concern for the league and the division in particular, at 3-3 and only being 1 game behind the Raiders and the Chargers, if the Chiefs do address the situation and can get it right, they're the kind of team that can go on a massive run. We know they can do it. So be interesting to see how they go. And they've got the Titans. I know we're going to discuss the Titans-Bills game, but they're actually in Tennessee next weekend, which is still be a difficult game,
Yeah, and they have teams like the Packers to come, the Cardinals to come, the Raiders twice. They've got to play the Bengals. Bengals fans, please forgive me. So there are plenty of games on their calendar and their schedule this year that they can still lose. And 11-6 or 10-7 is within the realms very much of possibility. Might still be not good enough for a wild card, obviously, but it depends on how right they get it, or if they're going to continue this spluttering form.
Let's look ahead to Monday Night Football. Just want to say one thing. Somebody mentioned Vic Fangio there and the ownership situation. Nah, not having it, lads. Like, it's not good enough. Regardless, 5 years. I'm lucky that I still have the same amount of hair on my head in the last 5 years, but I've got more wrinkles and I'm not putting up anymore. And people aren't going to accept it anymore. So people will turn off and will watch something else because it's embarrassing. And you're going there next month, Colin, so I'm sure you'll relay those thoughts.
Michael, just before we move on to the Monday Night Football, only game we didn't touch on, I think, Vikings-Panthers, 34-28. Talk about what won there in relation to things as well. But just wanted to throw it out to the guys as well to maybe comment on that one briefly.
Well, if I'm the Panthers, your big concern is run CMC. I saw a stat today, in his first 49 NFL games, he played 49 games. In his next 24, he played 6. That's a huge concern. They've got to get him fit and keep him fit.
The Vikings are such a strange team. They've had so many games this season where they've lost, and they could have easily won. And yesterday was the kind of game, having missed the field goal at the end and gone into overtime, you thought, maybe this was going to go against them, but unfortunately they got the win. They look like they're moving in the right direction. To be honest, they're the only team that can probably challenge, with all due respect, the Packers in the division. But Packers have a 2-game lead. It's hard to see how anybody's going to pull it.
I'm picking the Vikings, Brian. I said it in your gaff. I'm gonna keep.
It's going to be a hard push. I know they haven't played each other yet, but I'm not sure when they're playing each other.
But Michael, it was the only thing I have on this game was again another game where if you look to the stat sheet afterwards, you would have questioned, and how was it so close? I mean, Cousins threw for 373 yards and 3 TDs with no picks. They say about let Russ cook, let Dalvin cook. 29 rushes for 140. Oh, something going on.
What was that? What was that?
There was a bit of classical music in the background just to keep you entertained. But anyway, sorry. So Dalvin Cook's performing, and you look at Sam Darnold's stat line. Colin's rightly worried about run CMC in terms of getting on the field. You have to worry about Sam Darnold being on the field. 17 passes completed on 41 attempts, an average of 5 yards with only 200 yards of received. That ain't gonna get it done. And we can say about good Sam Darnold, bad Sam Darnold, young Sam Darnold, younger Sam Darnold. Unfortunately, we're still seeing the same quarterback with the same foibles and flaws that exist.
Absolutely. And look, it's been great chatting about week 6 tonight. Really enjoyed it, boys, apart from talking about my own team. Great crack in London. It's now time to get down to the business part. I'm going to need to get Mark and Brian to move over just a touch. Leave that pizza for a second, Mark, and let's get into the business. Big picks tonight. We've got the pepperoni against the ham and pineapple, Mark. in the, in the no, not no. I thought that would be funnier than what it truly was.
Who
Yeah,
would put
so
pineapple on a pizza, Michael? That's an abomination.
okay, fair enough. We got one comment before we do that. If gamer guys, if the Seahawks continue to lose, do you think Ken Norton Jr. or Pete Carroll could be in trouble at the end of the season? I heard Pete wants to run it more with Penny being back from IR. I think this is Pete Carroll's last year in Seattle. I think the Seahawks are going to finish fourth. I know it's not going their way with Russell Wilson, but I thought that at the start of the year. I think the window's closed for Seattle.
I think the window could be closing this season because of the nature of how long Wilson is due to be out. But in fairness to them having been 14-0 down last night in Pittsburgh, that's the kind of game for most teams that they would lose interest and Pittsburgh would have a comfortable night. But they came back. I mean, the game went to overtime, and I know Geno fumbles the ball and gives the game essentially to the Steelers. But there was a moment in that game where Jamal Adams had a really, I wouldn't say easy interception, but it's one he should be doing. For a guy who's come out, to get out of Jets and make sure he's one of the best players in the league, he's been hosed in Seattle since he's gone there, and he was that interception last night wins the game for him. So, look, they'll probably still be very competitive because I still think Carroll's the kind of coach that will get performances, but the quarterback thing is the drop off to Geno Smith is too much for them to really make a push for the playoffs.
That was the same Jamal Adams who last week introduced himself on the TV broadcast as the best in the nation. Yeah. Highest and most expensive safety.
When you say things like that, you know what's coming.
Yeah, he's got to perform more than that.
So, have you done that column? Are you happy enough?
And no, I think it's pretty much being covered off on with the three lads.
Happy days. Well,
I'm
sorry about
the
pizza
game ahead tonight,
situation.
Monday Night Football.
Good game, man. Sorry about the pizza situation. We'll get back to the real football talk, boys. In all seriousness, it's been a hard weekend. I'm exhausted. We're all exhausted. Titans 3-2, Bills 4-1. It's. I wish this game was at 9 o'clock on a Sunday, and I wish I had a duvet and a cup of tea, and I was sitting eating a packet of Banshee bones, boys, week before Halloween and stuff, having a bit of crack. But no, late night tonight. We're all going to stay up and watch it, obviously, as well. It's on Channel 5 in the north and manually on Sky and on NFL Game Pass. Titans, Bills, Colin, who you got, man?
I think if I'm the Titans, I have huge concerns about how frequently Tannehill has been sacked. Because whatever about the cards in week one and Chandler Jones having just this monstrous game, and sometimes a player just catches fire. The Jets caused all sorts of problems, and so there's clearly a weakness there. If when it gets taken advantage of a number of occasions. And the Bills look to address the pass rush in the offseason. I think they did a pretty good job on it in terms of the way they were able to then not blitz the Chiefs, but still get pressure on Mahomes and confuse him by keeping the guys covered. We know their offense, Josh Allen is cooking, and for me, I think that's going to continue. I just think they're going to have a little bit too much. I'm sure Vrabel is going to look to want a response, and but I think the Titans are still probably a little beat up. They might get better as the season goes on, as Julio kind of settles in. But I think the Bills have looked very impressive. I expect them to keep cooking, and for me, they're going to win tonight.
The Bills' defense has been really impressive this season. It was probably one of the question marks last year that they weren't as consistent as they should be, and they were poor against the run game, and they've greatly improved. But I would suggest that they haven't played anybody who has the attributes and players in which the Titans do. And Brown, the wide receiver, I know Colin's touched on there. It's a fair point that they may not be fully fit, but they're both going to play tonight in terms of Julio Jones and Brown, and Derrick Henry's there. So there's going to be a right balance, and when that balance is there for the Titans, they tend to put up high points. And maybe this is the one in which we'll see, and everybody's expecting the Bills to win, put up these 30-odd points, and they might do, I say, a high-scoring game, but I'm going to go against the trend here. I think when the Titans look like they're gashed, they find a way to win. They went into Seattle, and look, we were all raving about Seahawks and felt they would win that game. They came back in the second half, and for me, it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I'm just going with the shock. I'm going with the Titans.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is reminiscent of obviously a couple of playoff matchups in recent times, and Titans and Ravens is usually more fun, but Titans have played the Bills also, and it's going to boil down. We know it already. We know it's going to boil down to Derrick Henry, and we know it's going to boil down to Josh Allen and the Bills receiving attack. The reality is, there's a few things that people tend to overlook. I mean. What was it? Actually, sorry, I should have given you a stat on the Cowboys-Pats games. The Cowboys put up 567 yards last night in the Pats, which is more than in any other game against Bill Belichick in his entire career. And every time I look at this game, I can only see the Bills continuing to exploit a poor Titans secondary and continuing to exploit it and continuing to exploit it. I tried to look at this from the point of view of takeaways, and I went, well, maybe the Titans can, generate some takeaways. Actually, the league leader in takeaways is the Bills defense, and it isn't the Titans. Josh Allen has been rolling the last couple of weeks. They have no issue in playing, and they're getting more and more used to playing the bigger stage games. Of course, the Titans might get a monumental performance from Derrick Henry. They load everything up. Bills defense goes to sleep and forgets that Ryan Tannehill can also throw the ball and can also run with the ball, and they spring the shock. They've done it before. They could easily do it again. But for my money, I just can't see this Bills offense being slowed down, and therefore I'm going on the Bills tonight.
Sorry, Michael, I know you're going to make your pick. Another point, these two played each other last year, and it was one of the games that got moved because of COVID. I recall they kicked off at midnight our time, which was a nice convenient time for most of us to watch a game late at night. And everybody expected the Bills, who were high flying at the time, to go in and put a beat down on the Titans. And Titans, in fact, ended up giving the Bills the beat down, which is, it just has that kind of familiarity. Everybody's expecting the Bills to win. And I saw the comment come in on our social page there from the Irish Titans. Thanks very much, guys. So I'm really building up a good network this weekend, apologising to Bengals fans and now the Titans, because the Titans have been bashing me for a couple of years as well. So it's good to see I'm welcome in Cork again. I might go out to Strabalgan again with the kids. They might cover me hotel costs. Happy days.
Will Michael be on a 7-hour journey down to Cork at some point this season with the lads? Let's find out soon enough. Who knows what can happen? Few weeks rest first, boys. Few weeks rest first. Derrick Henry's not going to rush for any more than 40 yards tonight, boys. It's happening. Is there? I think Josh Allen will throw for 3 touchdown passes and they'll get the run game going. And Jim Belfast Kelly's Buffalo Bills will get the win on Monday.
Where the bookie is setting the line for Derrick Henry at 97 yards. Sorry, Colin, I know we had a good chat about how we're bringing you into this world of understanding gambling lines. Essentially, what they're saying is 97 is the line. Is he going to run for over 97 and under 97? And Michael's giving the bookies a spare 50 yards there. He says he's not going to run for over 40. We'll see.
Did our bet come up in Matchbook?
It did.
Right.
Yes.
Take the money on Matchbook right now and put it on the under tonight. Derrick Henry is not getting any more than that 90-odd yards. Can we just very quickly give a big shout out as well to Keith? Yeah, big.
Keith. Yeah,
Keith. There he is. There's a few fine-looking lads there, boys. Freshly faced. 6.5 hours before a live show. No, that's a lie. I'm joking.
Pleasure to meet you. Smiling then, and then unfortunately he wasn't smiling yesterday afternoon. He even made that point on his message tonight. I thought you were going to put up the photograph of me getting the horse collar for 15 yards in the photograph.
I've only got this one at the minute, but if you zoom in there, you are getting the horse collar. I'm sorry, Brian. I should have prepared more on the editing front. I will do better on Thursday night when.
Sorry, guys, I've got one more point to make, and a friend of mine just reminded me. Cam is fully vaccinated. Myself and Colin had a chat with a Bengals fan yesterday. Cam is now fully vaccinated, and he's talking to the Seahawks. So, potentially, Gino only played for a couple of games, and they might give Cam a shot. Interesting.
Sorry, he'd be an improvement on Geno Smith.
It wouldn't be hard.
I think Gino deserves a shot.
Although, and another point, sorry, what was the story with those two guys at half time yesterday? I mean, remember they brought two guys in off the street, throw a few footballs in a hole that was 5 yards away, and they couldn't. Not one of them could manage to put it through. I mean, it's like the guys never even saw American football before. Anyway,
I thought they done well for themselves. I mean, it's not easy to stand in front of 60,000 people and do that there. Thank you for the reminder. There obviously a massive thanks to everybody just for this weekend in terms of anybody that stopped us on the street on Sunday and said hello to us. Never mind that there, but even the show on Saturday night, great crack, boys. The NFL for the hookup in terms of the game day experience, and just a fantastic weekend, boys. It made the late nights and the very, very early mornings worth it. Sunday Night Football was still happening when I woke up this morning. I'm pained to say.
Yes,
Colin, a great weekend.
Steelers got the win there, which we haven't really talked about, and TJ came up big time. He got his contract, but he's continued to make big plays. Sometimes we obviously see guys get big deals, and all of a sudden they start making business decisions. Not TJ. And the Steelers, after looking so all at sea, suddenly have 2 wins under their belt. And some breaking news that I just saw is MRI has confirmed that Dak has a calf strain. Before she has that bye week to try to get ready, but obviously, given how well he's playing, I imagine they're going to want to wrap him in cotton wool. But I think their next game is away to the Vikings, so they're going to want to have him around for that.
Yeah, I think that division is going to be sound up for you. I said it last week. That division is going to be over by Thanksgiving. Final point for the weekend. Look, it's 2 weekends, I suppose, in a sense. We saw 2 really good games and haven't had no games last year. It was great to have them back, and despite the records of the teams, we were entertained to 2 really good games, and whets the appetite for next year. But for now, we just have to go back to our Red Zone and our Game Pass and our Sky Sports coverage.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about Dak. Dallas already has a 3-game lead in that division. Obviously, the Bills can match that tonight. If they do handle their business against the Titans, they'll also have a 3-game lead in the AFC East. We have 2 AFC divisions that have everyone above 500 or above, which is an interesting sake of parity. And obviously, the rows about wildcards might get interesting in the AFC in particular. But for me, the big takeaway of the weekend is Mike Gesicki is huge. Like, he's a big boy. He's massive. His hands are like meat cleavers. He came to the post-game conference, and I turned to Brian, and I was just like, oh my God, he's enormous. We saw him at the airport again then. I was just like, he's unreal. It's almost unfair that he's that fast and that big in that many ways. And they had a great game in London.
He's nearly as tall as Mark.
No, he's taller, man. He's immense.
One guy who is taller than Mark, DK Metcalf, him and Shannon Sharp going at it on Twitter all day today. So you didn't see that, a bit of fun. But in the end, DK put up his hands and said, you know what, Shannon, I do pray my resume matches up to yours. So all happy families in the NFL at the end of the day.
I'm actually taller than DK Metcalf, Colin, but I'll leave that one go.
He's wider than the 4 of us standing in a line.
That one I'll give you, absolutely.
When you say they're back in the happy world of NFL, or more so, someone from the PR team finally got on to him and told him to shut up.
Well,
or he actually looked up Shannon's stats and went,
yeah.
It's been a crazy few days. It's been a long day. We got through it, boys. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank the over 1,200 people that watched us live. Massively appreciate everyone. Yes, thank Trust Gaming, thank Matchbook Betting Exchange, and also check out our pin tweet for a chance to win a headset, a gaming chair, and a subscription to NFL Game Pass with thanks to Trust Gaming, and also with thanks to Gamerstore.ie. That's open until October the 30th. You can retweet any show for a chance to win. As far as I know, as long as you're on the island of Ireland, you have a chance of winning. We'll be back on Thursday night when the Denver Broncos will travel to Cleveland, and they may stop off and eat somewhere, and then they'll go to a game. and we'll talk about that then.
They're playing
And
against
we'll see the fun.
the bust quarterback. Busted quarterback
There you
with
go.
the shoulder.
But for now, gentlemen, from Michael McQuaid, from Colin Cronin, from Brian O'Leary, and from David Duval, it's a good night from all of us. Good night.
Duval! So here in Duval. Yeah!
Mr. Cockerell, Mark, welcome in, my friend. You're here, you've made it. Duval?
David Duval, who played golf.
Jaguars.